If you're feeling a little bit of a tipping fatigue these days, you're not alone. 2 out of 3 Americans say that they're not feeling that generous with the gratuities these days. So today we're going to talk about tipping, when it's necessary, when it's a nice to have, and when it's okay to skip it. There are many unspoken rules about tipping, and they've always caused some confusion. But 3 things in particular have caused a lot of changes in tipping culture these days: the pandemic, inflation, and technology. To find out more about this, I spoke to Nicole Lynn Pesci. She's a MarketWatch editor that focuses on personal finance and trending news topics.
COVID and what's happened since COVID has changed the way that we tip a lot. Initially, when everything was locked down, people were generally tipping a lot more out of solidarity. They were supporting the essential workers or service workers that were still exposing themselves and by extension their families to COVID when a lot of us were able to stay home.
The pandemic disrupted consumers' lives, but it also changed how we look at small businesses. Once tipping used to be an act of generosity, but during the pandemic, it became a means of supporting your neighbor. But now that restrictions are lifted and small businesses are operating like normal, all this extra tipping, is it still necessary? When we add technology to the mix, we add another layer of pressure. Think about it, with mobile payments and online payments becoming the norm, we're all taken to pages where we're asked to tip, whether we intended to or not.
For example, I went to a concert on Long Island over the summer and grabbed a t-shirt at the merch table, and all someone did was hand me that $35 or $40 t-shirt, and I was presented with the option to tip 20% and up on that. And I said no, politely just clicked, decline, because that wasn't really a service, right? But that's something that we wouldn't have been asked to tip on before. You might feel pressure just to quickly tap that 20% tip and move on. You really can just go to the custom tab that they always have and just put in $1 or $2.
And finally, inflation keeps adding pressure to consumers' wallet. The amount of money you pay for goods and services keeps rising, but that 20% is not changing, so your bill keeps getting higher. So where do we go from here? Nicole worked with a variety of etiquette experts to figure out exactly how much we should be tipping for different services. Food and drink is an important category because most servers depend on tips. You should consider the level of service you're receiving. For a sit-down meal, 15 to 20% is expected. But if it's a drive-through, you can skip the tip. And that dreaded iPad at the coffee shop, you should consider it the same way you do the tipping jar. You can leave $1 if you want to, but you don't have to. With travel and transportation services, a tip is still expected, but workers don't typically depend on them, so you can afford to go a little smaller. With taxis and Ubers, it's still good to aim for 15 to 20%, but other services like concierges and bellhops and housekeepers, you can give a few dollars depending on how big the job is.
I think a lot of us got into the habit of when you were checking out at the end of your stay, you'd put in $5 or more down for housekeeping, when we don't consider the fact that a lot of times your housekeeper is changing by the day. It's someone different doing your turn down service or cleanup every day. So etiquette experts had advised to me that what we should do is put down maybe $2 to $5 every single day that you're staying someplace, with a note marking that this is for housekeeping and thank you.
And finally, grooming services like manicurists, tattoo artists, masseuses, or haircuts should get about 15 to 20%. And finally, you don't have to give a tip for professional services like doctors, lawyers, or retail workers. And never ever offer a tip or any other gift to a government employee or postal service worker, because that would be considered a bribe.
People have always had anxiety about tipping because on the one hand, we don't want to be taken advantage of, but on the other hand, we don't want to be a jerk and not give enough. The etiquette experts say not to stress too much about it because it really is supposed to be about showing thanks and appreciation.
You can see a detailed version of this guide on MarketWatch.com. And if you're ever in doubt, please remember, tipping is meant to make both the giver and the receiver feel good. And in most cases, it's optional. And if you need more content like this from MarketWatch and the Explainomics playlist, please subscribe and keep checking back for new videos. And we'll see you next time.